Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of my PAX analysis VODs. Thank you for the really kind reception to that last one. I wasn't sure if it was going to go over well because of how long it was, but it seems like people enjoyed it. For the second episode, I've actually got a guest with me. Dabacabb, why don't you introduce yourself?
What's up, people of the internet? My name is Dabacabb. I have a brand spanking new artifact channel. Just, type in Dabacabb Artifact, you'll find it, as well as 2 other YouTube channels. I am a full-time YouTuber, and I can't wait to get into Artifact. The sooner the better. So we'll see.
All right, right on. And so the reason for the viewers out there why we're doing this video together is actually one of the few PAX VODs I actually saw both live, like from the show floor, and then after the fact turned into content was the game that you played on stage. And I've seen now, I think, 2 separate analyses of it. So this isn't like me coming in fresh, as I did with the previous game that I did. This is something I've seen, although the details are a little fuzzy with the time that's gone since then. But I've seen, I think you did one, and then you did one with Angermania also, who's another YouTuber, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I thought was really interesting about both of those is, like, it was very cool to see what everyone's picking out as kind of key points in the game and justifications for plays and all that stuff, because it's hard if I'm sitting here by myself and I look at a game, it's hard for me to say, okay, like, I think that this play is definitely wrong or definitely right for X and Y reason, but sometimes in the heat of the moment you see it a different way, and that's just kind of cool to talk about. So yeah, I wanted to go through the game. I'm sorry if people don't want to see the same one for the 3rd time, but I hope that the extra layer of depth that I can give makes it interesting. So
I'm really interested because, despite the fact that I won, I am certain you must necessarily be way better than me and help me understand what I did X in order to win because I was hoping that X would do Y and Z, and you could be like, oh yes, that is exactly the right line of thinking, or nah, you just got super lucky, dude. So I really want to know if my thinking was right here.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of treat it like a coaching session. That's kind of the way that I'm thinking about it. This is coaching for the crowd. All right, let's do a 3, 2, 1 and hop on into it. I'm gonna try and pause a little less than I did in the last video, because if it's just my time I'm dominating, it's no biggie. I don't want to make you sit here for an hour though. All right, sure. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, let me make sure I mute this, Joe. Okay, so let's pause real quick now. I just want to talk about the decks real fast and the initial spawns as far as I can see them. So it looks like you're on top. Yeah, you're on the top, yeah. Right? On the blue, so you're blue-red control, and then you're playing up against Econ Ramp. So this is actually the same decks that I did for the last video. I think that blue-red is favored in this matchup, depending on if black-green is able to get some early gold generation going. But we'll see if that actually happens. At the moment, not looking great for who is it you're playing against, by the way? I'm
playing against Lumi.
Okay, Lumi. Not looking great for him that he's losing this Rix on turn 1. It's not ideal. Something I'm also going to try and do in this one is talk a little bit about, very open-endedly, like, interesting things about the PAX decks that seem strange to me, but not necessarily the full context of why. So one thing that I think is really interesting is, like, do you necessarily want Rix in your starting heroes, right, in your first 3? It dies to, I'm trying to think of the proportion of heroes that we've seen so far revealed that can kill Rix. It's probably like 1/3 of them, right?
Yeah, it's a lot. We actually... as far as I know, we don't know. Do you get to choose which heroes start?
Oh, they've definitely revealed that. So you pick your first 3, and then you pick 1, and then you pick 1. Right? So when you're... I can't say how you do this, but when you're building your deck, you know who is going to be in your first 3. Which is why... Okay. That's why every game that you've seen from PAX will have the same 3 heroes from each deck in the first 3 slots.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
Yeah. That's actually part of deck construction that's really important. Now, as everyone knows, you don't get to pick where they go. So that's why I'm kind of making this point, right? Like Rix, sure, having him on turn 1 and dying, you still get him on turn 2. Maybe you get a better redeploy. But if he dies on turn 1, he dies on turn 1. Like that is the same no matter what. I know, like, for example, with Bristleback, people have been talking about whether he should be played on turn 2 or turn 1. Because if you play him on turn 2, like, let's say that the opponent played like a Luna and it died to a Phantom Assassin, right? And then the Bristleback gets to play in the Luna spot, right? So then, like, assuming the minions spawn the right way, you actually get to determine that you're possibly going to get to determine that you get the 2 armor for sure.
Oh, I see. So it's like a heroes will very commonly kill something in front of them. So then Bristleback comes in after that into the empty slot for an almost guaranteed hero kill. That's smart.
Yeah. Because if I'm going to draw on the screen, which you can't see, unfortunately, but, like, you know, if this dies and then nothing else spawns in here or here, then that spot is game to be taken from whoever spawns second. So, yeah, anyway, it's just something I'm trying to get people thinking about Artifact, and something to think about is, like, do you want Rix in your first 3 heroes? Maybe if you're playing an aggressive lineup, you do. Right? Because then, even if he dies, you just deploy 2 heroes in a different lane. I talked about last video is like the idea of a dead lane. That concept is much more accurate to like the public's perception of it currently in aggressive lists, right? Because in aggressive lists, you don't have time to muck around in a lane that you're not going to win. So having Rix die turn 1 isn't a big deal necessarily. You just spawn 2 heroes on turn 2 in another lane. Start to really snowball it. I'm talking on a huge tangent here. Let's get back to this game.
Right.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Unpause. So yeah, there's not really anything that either of you guys can do at the moment.
Yeah, it's a lucky start for me. I was pretty happy with that. Though, in my analysis, as I said, it really didn't matter that much because Bristleback did not take a lot of damage this game. So I'm not sure if that first 2 armor mattered much, except for the possibility that it may have influenced what Lumi did and didn't do because Bristleback was big off the start, but that armor just didn't amount to much. So without talking to Lumi and asking him why he did stuff, we'll never know if that mattered, you know?
Yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from. I think typically Bristleback kills on turn 1, like, they affect the game, but they never really win the game. Nothing crazy going on in the middle lane. Obviously, you had the option of Vent and Tower Barrage, but neither one would have been really accomplishing anything, so I think it's good you didn't play them.
Okay, he plays Untested Brute here.
Let's pause.
Really surprised.
Okay.
I was really surprised by that. That felt like kind of a waste of a card to me. Just to spend a card just to kill a creep. When I saw it, I was like, wait, is that a good play? Because this guy knows more than me, so I was like, what? That's a good play? I was surprised by it. So
this play is actually pretty interesting in my opinion. I am not sure it's good either. I'm going to take a second to think about it some more. But the 2 big considerations for this that I think are worth talking about are, A, what is the purpose of Untested Grunt, right, in the black-green deck against red-blue, right? Like, what are you hoping to accomplish with this card? I think there's, like, 2 or 3 things that this card can ideally do in the matchup. The most important one is actually blocking a Red Mist Pillager. Like, if they spend 5 mana and you have a 2 mana answer to it, it's essentially like a 1 mana worse grazing shot that they can react to. So it's not perfect, but, like, that's probably the most consistently useful way to get value out of that card in this matchup. The other thing is that, maybe you can push damage with it. It can be an okay target for Divine Purpose just to have, like, this derpy thing that stops attacks from going through. It can also be good as a possible pathing card. So essentially, like, let's say that that your creep wasn't here, right? Which I'm drawing on the screen which one I'm talking about. If that wasn't there, then maybe playing Untested Grunt here this turn would have let you path into Keef. And so sometimes you can kind of treat these low-cost, high-attack minions as, like, RNG-based removal. It's not super RNG, because, like, you still get value if it just hits tower. And it comes back next turn, blah, blah, blah. That's one other thing to look at. Now, in terms of why Lumi maybe played this when he did and how he did, it's possible that he was trying to keep the board thin, such that if he plays a green hero here next turn, he's not going to have to worry about playing it into a minion as much and like start pressuring, because he is on a handicap. Does that make sense? So like if he trades these and there's only 2 minions spawning next turn, like, you know, anytime a minion spawns into this lane next turn, there would have been 1 more. So that reduces his options for where he can go, especially if sorry, I'm saying his from the perspective of Lumi here. So your if your minions spawned next turn, like to the right, for example, then he can't play a Savage Wolf and start developing damage on the tower, or maybe like pathing it into Keef, which he probably doesn't want to do anyway. But yeah, like maybe he just wants to keep the board thin. There's 1,000,001 reasons why you'd want to do that. But
yeah, let's see how he deploys, I think.
Yeah, I think it'll be worth looking at. Like, no matter what happens when you make this play, like, you cannot be sure that your deploy is going to go the way you want, but he might be playing towards that. I'm ready to unpause. 3, 2, 1, go. There's a lot of reasons why you want to compress your lane in all kinds of situations. Okay, I definitely want to do a quick pause after the shop so we can talk about where we would deploy them rather, and where you've considered deploying them. It might be easier if I just go through your actions, seeing as I have you here. Yeah, let's do that. I'm just going to do your perspective for this game. So you've got a Zeus. Let's talk about where your Zeus is going to go. What were you kind of thinking at this stage?
Keep in mind, as just sort of like a general noob with artifacts, I just had some sort of basic principles. Number 1 is try to keep a hero in a lane as much as possible. And number 2, try to spread out colors. Like, I don't want 2 red heroes in the lane. I don't want 2 blue heroes in the lane. At this point, Bristleback's kind of locking down the first lane. I don't want to double stack blue mid lane, so I'm thinking I should probably put Zeus in the 3rd lane, because not only does it distribute my colors well, but also Phantom Assassin is in tower barrage range, so I might be able to save Keef. And I wish I remember what items I picked up. I think I might have also picked up a healing potion. I'm not really sure. I don't remember. But I just figured that was kind of the safest all-around move.
I'd say that is pretty much all on the money.
Yes!
The only other consideration that I would make is I think there is a reasonable play that exists where you play Zeus mid. The reason being that with his perk and ventriloquy and tower barrage, you can possibly wipe out like the big board that's developing here. And a read that you might make is that Riley is going to go mid, because Riley doesn't want to go left lane like pretty much at all. Like there's no way that's going to happen. Rix doesn't want to go left lane. Like this Bristleback, at least for now, is too threatening. So when you're thinking about your hero deployment, like the line that you just talked about is thinking about what you can do with your colors and your cards, but it didn't mention what he could do.
That is far beyond my 5 games of experience. I was just trying to, like, you know, tread water essentially, not dive deep into the abyss of my opponent's subconscious mind.
I definitely think that's fair, man. But anyway, if we do take that, you know, in the spirit of learning for a second, if we do take that perspective, with only 5 health, Riley could die to tower barrage plus Luna ping plus both Zeus pings. Not super likely to happen. That's kind of asking for a lot, but you at the very least could get a second hero very, very low health in middle lane this turn. And because you're currently already winning the left lane and going even in the right lane, like, you know, you're going to trade these heroes probably no matter what. The middle lane's kind of the only lane that you're quote-unquote losing right now. It might make sense to kind of develop there and try and slow him down. Because keep in mind, like, you said you saw the other analysis that I did, right?
Yeah.
So, as you might remember, right, the lane that the blue-red control deck lost, they gave up a little too early, and it became out of control for black-green. So, it would have been a very defensive play. It also could have ended up with a 1 in 4 chance, because there's 4 white outside of Luna, that Zeus dies to Riley, unless you ventriloquy to taunt. Like, Riley would have to spawn to the right of the enemy groups. But yeah, that could have been a reasonable choice, but I think going right lane is fine, too, to be clear. Like, you've already got 1 lane won, it's just kind of like a quicker play than maybe is the mid lane play, because you're against a player with a handicapped tower. Like that's also a reason to go for the right lane play.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that was good. I'm not going to break down what maybe Lumi would have done here. So I'm ready to unpause in 3, 2, 1, go. I know a lot of commenters wanted me to keep doing both perspectives. I think when I have a guest, it's probably annoying, but I'll do another one before this next week that goes into 2. Okay, so he's committed to send Rix to the right lane. Cool. Looks like he bought phase boots, which I'm assuming is from your secret shop. Like that item's not in the main deck of blue-red control, is it? I'm afraid I do not remember. I'm like 90% sure, so I'm just gonna pretend that that's definitely a thing, which is fine. I wish I could see your shop. It's kind of a key thing we're missing, but whatever.
Yeah, I didn't have much of a game plan for that, other than just I feel like phase boots are kind of fairly useful, and I wanted to keep my Luna alive for stacked, so it seemed like a decent pickup, I thought.
Mm-hmm. I think so. I think a very solid thing with blue-red control is getting health items on your blue characters early, so I think that was the right line of thought. The other line of thought is that you could have used it on Keith, and we should talk about that actually real quick. Let's pause. Because Keith is pretty low, but you have a minion, if I recall correctly, that spawned in the right lane. Something you could do is phase boots on Keith and then swap him with a minion. PA is on 2 health and you get the minion killing PA, but you keep Keith alive and develop maybe 6 damage on the tower. So that would have been a really good reason to buy the phase boots too. Playing at mid is fine. It's not better than a Traveler's Cloak though, and it probably will continue to not be better than Traveler's Cloak until Luna dies. So you're not getting as good value as maybe you could with that play, but it's not a big deal.
All right.
I wonder. Okay, he goes for 7.
I thought about tower barraging the wolf, but it wouldn't have killed him, so I felt like it was kind of pointless.
I think tower barrage here without the Zeus also going here, definitely not super useful. If it was on 5 mana and that's the board you saw, I'd consider doing it, because then you're following up with a weakened board for an Eclipse the turn after, maybe. But Tower Barrage also, I guess you're probably thinking about saving it for this lane, right?
Right, and this is a mistake I made. I could have ventriloquied the creep instead
you mean
of
yours or his?
The Rix. Yeah, ventriloquing my creep to spare myself the Rix damage. I paused up 3.
Yeah, I paused too. I'm gonna jump back
because that would have pinged the Rix for 1, and the Zeus would have killed him off, and then the Rix would have hit my creep for 3, not killing it. But instead, I ventriloquied the Rix, which put 3 damage into my Zeus. That's 3 damage I could have avoided.
Yeah, there's actually an even better play in the same line. You could have just ventriloquied Zeus, right? So what or Rix, right, and have them just continue to hit each other. So I'll talk about why that I think is better real quick. By keeping your minion attacking the tower, you're getting 2 additional damage. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that you would rather keep health on your minion than Zeus, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, probably. What's his next hero? Chen?
Earthshaker. Oh, mine's Earthshaker. His is Chen, yeah.
His is Chen? Okay, so Chen's 4 attack. Maybe that's not true then. I think if his next hero was 3 attack, if it was Rix again that spawned there, which it could be actually because rapid deployment, then just keeping the health on your minion is better. Because then if he spawns a minion, let's think about over the next 2 turns. If he spawns minions in right lane, and they fill up the spots in front of Keith and whatever, any combination of these things, you spawn wider, right? And then the turn after, this still hasn't died, so you spawn even wider if you get any more minions. And as a result of that, I talked about in the last video, Red Mist Pillagers get to spawn really far away. I didn't actually go into why that's good last game, so I'm going to do that really quick. If your board is really wide and you spawn a Red Mist Pillager, it reduces the chance that anything spawns in front of it for subsequent turns. That's why that's good. So anyway, it's kind of like a longer term play to take damage on your Zeus. It's kind of like the idea of using your tower health as a resource. You can use your hero health as a resource sometimes too. But one thing I will say definitely is the play that you suggested also would have been better than the one that you did do, because you did overkill the Ricks by 2 and didn't get the 2 on the tower. Right. So you identified the mistake. I think there's an argument to be made between which is better out of the correct responses, though. All right, ready to unpause? Mm-hmm. All right, let's go.
I'm 90% sure that the item I pick up here is the sword with 2 attack and 2 cleave.
Blade of the Vigil?
Yeah, Blade of the Vigil. I'm pretty sure that's the item I pick up here.
Interesting.
Or I don't see an item in my hand.
It doesn't.
Right, of course, we can see my hand. I forgot that we can see my hand. We just don't see the shopping phase. So that's a pointless.
No. The item will show up like as you're drawing cards. Like it'll draw items and then it'll draw new cards.
Right.
So we'll see it in a second. It tripped me out the other day because it glitched and like Slacks got a town portal scroll before the money got spent. So you have an Earthshaker? Let's pause real quick. I just spoilered myself barely. So we should talk about where it makes sense to send Earthshaker. Mm-hmm. It looks like you've sent him mid lane. Why? What was the thought process behind that?
The thinking was right lane's real strong. I don't have much of a problem there. Left lane has Bristleback, who's already pretty strong. Mid lane is starting to be kind of a problem. I think I'm going to lose this lane. I'm probably going to lose this lane, but I don't want to get overwhelmed. So I just sort of felt like it might be a good idea to put a blue hero in this lane so that down the road I could have better opportunities to cast blue spells. And I'll admit, in this entire game, this was sort of the weakest I don't know what I'm doing decision. Let's just put it here and hope for the best, because I don't really know where else he would have been needed, because right lane felt strong and the first lane felt strong. So I just like, okay, I guess I'll just give Luna a hand.
Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. I actually don't. I think it's kind of the second best play to put him mid. I don't think it's totally terrible. You're really hoping that he like blocks Savage Wolf or something to get good value out of this deploy. Because if he lands in front of Debbie, he just dies, and that's really not useful. And unless you had like a 7 mana card already in hand that you knew you wanted to play, which you don't yet. But I think actually the best place for Earthshaker to go this round is left lane. So to talk about why, you have to look 2 turns into the future. So this is the last hero that you have preparing to respawn, right? You know that the turn after this turn, you don't get to send anyone back, right? And because of that, if you've only got 1 hero in left lane, and PA is respawning, and it's 6 mana, right, then, you have to worry about coup de grace on a lane that only has 1 hero defending it. And what was a lane that you're winning pretty handily, right, this left lane, could really quickly turn into a lane that your opponent is winning, especially with these creep spawns, too. On top of that also, if you drew Conflagration, you'd want to play it on your 5 mana turn from the left lane to the middle lane as a way of starting to clear the creeps and minions and things that are there. And if he has Truth to Power, because he has Initiative, this means that you actually potentially get to play something this turn on your 5 mana if you draw a 5 mana blue card or less mana blue card. Whereas currently, if he just Truth to Powers Bristleback, and then next turn PA, coup de grace, like, suddenly you've probably lost left lane, actually.
Those are excellent points. That's true.
Yeah. So I think with this deploy, and typically as you get later into the game, you actually need to read later, right? Because you have more agency. It's kind of like an interesting game design thing about Artifact. Like, the later into the game it gets, because you have more options, you get so much more agency that you have to be able to look further into the future. Like, in the early turns, a creep spawning mid could be a really huge deal and totally change what you're going to do. In the later turns, not so much, unless it's like the 1 point of damage on Echo Slam that lets you kill a Chen or something. You know? But yeah, I don't think this is terrible. I just think it's relying on a few too many ifs for my liking. Also, final point, if you're to pretend that you have no hope of drawing a blue spell that you want to play, it still makes your board wide enough that you can start to play red mist pillagers and threaten that way too.
That's true. That's true.
Although you might be worried about the Revtel convoys that could possibly be in the opponent's hand. All right, let's unpause. I think I went into enough detail on that one. So, Lumi's deploys are interesting. So he draws Truth to Power. I wonder if he's going to play that.
How do you feel about Rix? Do you feel like he's a strong hero?
In the context of PAX, I think that he's okay. It's hard for me to talk much about whether I think he's strong outside of this. I don't play a lot of Rick's decks. I can say that, and it says nothing about his strength, though. This Stonehall Cloak plate is interesting. Rather. Let's chat about that. I'm not going to pause, but we can just chat over it. I definitely would not have played Stonehall Cloak on Bristleback. Like, he doesn't need the help in terms of his health here. Playing it on Luna, Keef, or Zeus, I think, are probably the best ways you can use that. Luna, because keeping her around a lot is really good. Keef, because he's very low from the last engagement he had with Pia on turn 1. And Zeus, because he's also good to keep around.
Yeah, you're probably right. I got a little bit blinded by the value, thinking if I put it on him, he'll just keep stacking and stacking and become completely invincible. But looking back, I agree, it probably is a little bit excessive overkill, and I could have used that more efficiently elsewhere.
Yeah, interesting also that playing Earthshaker in middle lane did not end up giving you the ability to save the tower, too. So now, what could happen is you end up like playing to win mid lane. That could be interesting. Revtel here. Oh, by the way, the Viscous Nasal Goo on Rix was solid. I liked that.
Yeah, I figure since Rix comes back so frequently that any debuff you can put on Rix is great.
That's definitely correct. I really like your Red Mist Pillager here. You know, he's out of mana, so going for it is solid. I wish they wouldn't do that. Yep, that seems good. This is why Stonehall Cloak on Zeus would have been good. Like, he would have you would have forced. Let's pause actually. So I'm at 643. I think we fell out of sync a little bit, but it's not.
Yeah, we were
not a big
way
deal.
out of sync.
Oh, really? Okay. So Stonehall Cloak on Zeus would have been really good here, because unless Lumi decides to hoard gold, you're pretty much always going to be out of range of dying to the Revtel. And to be honest, like I said this in the other video, but I don't think that hoarding gold is your best strategy with the black-green deck. At least not consistently the best strategy. So that's something to consider. I think... So you have 7 gold here. I'll keep an eye on whatever you buy. It's annoying that I can't see it. Did you play anything other than... No, Red Mist Pillagers play. Okay, we can unpause.
You're okay, 643, 645 now?
Yeah, thereabouts.
Okay.
So you have no heroes to deploy, so I'm just going to let it keep playing. This is what I mean. Like, okay, so yeah, PA goes left lane. Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's going to coup de grace.
I wasn't nearly at the level where I could predict, like, in the future, what PA is going to do 5 turns from now. I could at most plan for what he's doing, like, once she hits the board. So this stung a little, to be honest, but I mean, he's just way better at planning than I am, considering how
yeah, that makes sense, man. Like, I wonder if this is like too risky to say.
If it is, don't say it.
Yeah, probably not.
It's just a YouTube video.
Artifact is hard. The first games you play will be hard, regardless of anything. So he discarded a Hand of God. That's good information for you to have. I'll probably operate as... Oh, let's pause. I'll probably operate, like, when I'm reading your plays, as if he doesn't have one, knowing that he's discarded one now, by the way. Because, like, the odds of him having a second one aren't that great. Eclipse here is really interesting. We should talk about that play.
So my thinking was there's 2 possibilities. Either Eclipse goes tall and takes out something, which is great because I'm kind of in trouble in this lane and I don't want to get overwhelmed. Or Eclipse goes wide, which is not a big deal because I can hopefully finish people off with Blade of Vigil, and option 2 happens. It's kind of less about like this being a good play and more about things are going kind of bad here. I just don't want to get completely overwhelmed. He's about to take down, you know, a quarter of my Ancient's health, give or take, and I just want to thin out the board a little bit. And Conflag is too late to Conflag, so that's not going to do anything. The Conflag will never kill the wolf, so I may as well Eclipse and sort of roll the dice, and maybe Blade of the Vigil can help me finish off, because I have 2 positions to cast Blade of the Vigil from, so I'm feeling like I can kill, you know, a handful of things. And actually, it does turn out fairly well for me, actually.
Cool. Yeah, that is a solid way of thinking about it. What I'm going to suggest is that let's take a step back, right? Why do you want to clear this lane?
Because I felt like this mid lane went down pretty fast. The wolf's here. It's got Lycan next to it. She's got Debbie here. While I am all for giving up a lane that you don't really have much of a chance of winning, I felt like the pressure here was a little bit too high, too strong. And since it's, you know, green econ, there's always a chance that he could plop down like a 20 attack Reptile Envoy or something like that. So I just felt a little bit pressured to spare my Ancient some damage, because I was just a little bit concerned about my Ancient. I didn't know if that was me being overly conservative, but just at that level, at that time, at that level of skill, I thought that it was probably in my best interest to clear out this board just a bit.
Yeah, I got you. So here's what I'll say to that. I think that of the card, let's talk about the cards in your hand real quick. So Eclipse, as a card in the list that was at PAX for red-blue control, is one of the only ways to actually punch through, right? Because what else is there? Like Thunder Gods against anything with over 4 health never pushes through, whereas Eclipse sometimes does. And then Time of Triumph, like, yeah, it pushes through, but it doesn't do a great job of pushing through against Coup de Grace and you know, if they can still win in a lane which is Time of Triumph. So anyway, where I'm going with this is by playing to clear his board, what you're actually doing is saying, hey, you have 2 heroes here, Lycan and Riley, that you would like to get out of this lane, and right now you can't, but I'm going to help you. Right?
All right.
And to be even more clear, like, it's not that you don't want to clear this lane, but when you clear it matters. And so actually, a play that I would have liked to see here is Conflagration in mid lane. Right? Because you don't need to clear this lane faster than maybe
right, that
like
makes sense.
2 or 3 turns.
It saves my
right?
Ancient, but later, which is better for me and worse for him. That's
exactly
smart. That's smart.
And also, another thing to consider is that Eclipse becomes really, really like crap in lanes where things have great, like 4 health or 7 health, right? Because it deals in blocks of 3. And so your chances of like actually killing anything and not just weakening them, I know you've got the Blade of the Vigil, but I'm going to talk about that separately in a second. Your chances of actually killing anything are super duper low, because you've got a 7 here, you've got 4, 4, 4, right? 5 means you waste 1 to kill it twice. It's just kind of rough. So what I probably would have done this lane, like in completion, is I would have actually phase boost. Let's see. Maybe that's 8 damage because of the 4 here. I would have conflagrationed the lane and then ventriloquied his Riley with your Luna. And I don't think I would have played a Blade of the Vigil. Maybe I would have played it on an Earthshaker, even though he's going to die. Because that way, when he respawns, he's got more attack in another lane that you're actually trying to win. And he also helps you clear more things. And then, at the beginning of next turn, because you ventriloquied the Riley, and dealt 3 from Luna, the 2 damage is actually going to kill Riley, but it'll kill her at the beginning of the next turn. So it's actually 3 turns from now that Riley spawns again, right?
Right.
Like, that's actually one of the most powerful things about Conflagration, is that it lets you guarantee kills on heroes, but do it so that they respawn later. And also, by doing that, this spot, like this is a general thing, it doesn't matter here, but it means that because she dies at the beginning of the turn, this spot can't be filled next turn. So, like, if you had a creep here or something that was going to die in 2 turns, that's a consideration to make. Sorry, you can't see my X's. A creep in front of her. Okay, I think we've gone enough into detail about my speculative play. Let's just keep analyzing from where you're at, right, in this game.
So I think I'm willing to admit at this point that there's a pretty strong chance that you're better than me at this game.
Hey, man.
You're making some excellent points, things I'd never considered before, and so far I'm agreeing with you. These are, using complex like that, that's real smart.
Yeah, I think so. One thing real quick though, like, if you do that, and he Hand of Gods next turn, you feel super stupid. And I would have walked into that, right? Because I'm saying that I'm making the read he doesn't have it. He might have chosen not to play it because it's a lane he's already won, and maybe you want him to play it in mid lane because it's a lane he's already won. But, like, that would have been a play that comes next turn unless you held initiative and, like, eclipsed first or something. So there's always a lot to think about, you know. I'm gonna pause. I'm at 824 because I want to talk about this lane.
Okay. So one thing I wanted to ask you was, he spent a lot of sort of time and energy trying to kill my Red Mist Pillagers, which is kind of what I was hoping for, actually. That's kind of why I cast him here, just because I was winning the lane, so I thought I may as well just win the lane and sort of force him to deal with this. I mean, I knew this deck didn't have a lot of AoE. So first of all, like, that's question one, is do you feel like the resource he committed to Red Mist Pillager was smart? Secondly, I knew I had 2 options to kill the wolf and save the Red Mist Pillager. One was Ventriloquy. The second was Eclipse, with Eclipse having, at this point, had 5 charges, I believe. A fairly good shot, I thought, at killing the wolf, and that was preferable to me because that would give me another Red Mist Pillager. So that's what I opted for, was the risky Eclipse play. And again, it worked out for me. Do you feel like that was the better play, or should I have Ventriloquied?
This is an interesting turn for a lot of reasons, and all the considerations that you're talking about, it's good that you're thinking about this because they're all real. I think because you played Eclipse in mid lane, like, playing Eclipse here, I think because you played Eclipse in mid lane, the lane you actually want to win is mid now. I'm gonna rewind on my client. You can stay where you are if you want. 824, I remember, so I can come back there later. I just want to look at mid lane again and how it ended, right? So what health things were when it ended. So mid lane finishes, and he's sitting at, let me get rid of mine. He's sitting at 27 health on the tower. You have a healthy blue hero and a creep, and he's got like a big Savage Wolf and a Lycan. It's actually super unlikely that he's going to kill this Ancient now, because he's pretty restricted in how wide he can build. He doesn't have a lot of good value plays he can make here anymore because you've killed so many things. Like, essentially what I'm getting at here is, if you compare the relative, like, healthinesses of mid and right lane for him, he's actually in, like, you're in a position where you're gonna win right lane, or you're gonna kill his tower right lane no matter what. Does that make sense? Like, there's no way he's gonna survive with that 12 health, especially with things like Time of Triumph in your hand. So what I would have done here, once he plays that Savage Wolf, let me just get back to where we were, 824. What I would have done here is actually Conflagrationed, probably in middle lane, maybe in left, but I can't really remember what's there. Because what that does is it starts to, like, make him place things in a lane that he's won but won't win. Like, he's won the lane, like, he's killed the tower, but he's not going to win the game by killing your Ancient middle. Probably. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So like he wants to get out of the mid lane, but Conflag would force him to stay, whereas he wants to fight in the right lane, and Ridmist Pillager just gives him more reason to do so.
Yeah, kind of. And also, like, by investing, like, an Eclipse here, if you have the ability to punch through mid, because he gets Conflag next turn, and his Lycan is on 2 health, which is 1 Eclipse charge, and his Wolf is on, I think it'll be on 4, which is 2. So you'll be on 6 then, charges, right? Like, you're going to clear his entire board mid lane next round, and you've already basically killed this tower. So I definitely wouldn't Eclipse.
Okay.
Because I think you need the Eclipse to actually win the game somewhere else, maybe. I think Conflag is really good, and then the other benefit of Conflag is it leaves up open 1 mana, and then you have options with Ventriloquy. Like, probably something like taunting your minion to the right of Zeus could be good. Because, honestly, the Red Mist Pillagers, like, they've kind of already done their job. You don't need them to go wider, because that's just win more at this point. Like, in the same way that he's not going to win by killing the Ancient mid lane, you're probably not going to win the Ancient by killing right lane with this Revtel here.
There is some value in creating a clock, right?
Well, so you've already created a clock. Like, if you vent the minion to the right of Zeus, and you hit him for 10 this turn, and he has 2 health on this tower next turn, right? There's no way you're not dealing 2. Like, the clock that you're talking about, let me try and understand it better. Like, are you trying to create an ancient clock, or are you trying to just...
Yeah, just pressure him under an ancient clock.
Uh-huh. I don't think that has a lot of value in the right lane.
Okay.
Like, it has some value, but relative to the value of winning the game in the middle lane in the next 2 turns, because that's probably the timeline you're looking at, I don't think it has value compared to that.
Okay.
But I think if I take a step back and say, hey, like, maybe I don't care arbitrarily about winning in the mid lane, then I think Eclipse here is fine from that perspective, because like you've made a plan and you're committing to it. Like, if your plan is, hey, like, even if it was like, let's say we were playing games for fun and I was like, hey, the only way I actually get this win to count is if I kill you with Red Mist. then yeah, Eclipse is good here, because it has good odds of killing the Savage Wolf.
Sure.
And it actually has, like, okay odds of killing Chen. Not great. Alright, let's unpause.
Just have to hit Chen once, and then the Red Mist plus the 3 is...
Oh, that's a good point.
There's always a chance they could finish off Chen, which will let another Red Mist go through. The worst case scenario is every single one goes on Envoy.
Yeah.
Which would make me real sad.
That'd be kind of sad, but you also kill an Envoy, and right now, like, Lumi's holding 17 gold.
I mean, there's actually a lot of good scenarios for Envoy, and I got one of them.
Yeah.
Which is the Red Mist. It saves the Red Mist.
Probably this leather armor. Oh. Interesting. So Lumi there probably wanted Chen to leave the lane, because you've committed so hard, right, over there. Mm-hmm. He's like, okay, that's not my win anymore.
Right.
And actually, I think that was right. Like, I was jumping to conclusions with the leather armor.
Right.
So, do you have deploys here? They're on Red Mist Pillager forever. I can't see. Yeah, you do. Let's pause. Okay. So you have... I am at 916.
Okay. 916.
Oh, are those... No, you don't have deploys. I'm sorry. We can unpause.
Okay. Yeah, this is a rough turn for me, for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough one. Yeah, the other thing about Conflag, by the way, like, we didn't touch on this earlier, but compared to Eclipse, like, Conflag gets the most value played on turn 5. Eclipse get the most value played on turn infinite, because you potentially get, like, lots of stacks to bolster its usefulness. If there's, like, a comparably optimal play over the span of the next 2 turns to play Conflag, like, that's generally my preference. Holding Eclipses late is useful. It's harder in this PAX deck than maybe it is other places. Right. So Steam Cannon by him is good. Yeah, so with the creeps deploying the way they did, if you had an Eclipse here, you would have wiped his mid board, put him on 20, Next turn, you could have deployed a bunch of heroes there, like Time to Triumph.
So since I didn't do that, my plan was conflag lane 1 because I feel like I could kind of... Basically, at the next turn, I can invest really, really heavily in lane 1 and try and win there, or invest really, really heavily in lane 2 and try and win there. So the conflag was trying to give me a little bit more options, rather than sort of going all in mid lane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think it's bad. I think there's an argument to playing it mid lane still. Honestly, it's equitable. Yeah, it's fine. His Blink Dagger right lane here is interesting.
I don't know about that, man. He really wants to kill this Red Mist Pillagers. Man, he really wants to kill him. I think he's over-investing in his lane.
Yeah, I think it's wrong. So the reason why it's wrong is actually just because he's Hand of God in his hand. You played Conflag, gave him initiative. I might have not moved Lycan at all, and then just played 2 heroes in the left lane and Hand of God at next turn. I definitely wouldn't have played this. So actually, this is what I originally, like when I was thinking about this game, I wanted to talk about. I'm going to rewind real quick, just a little bit. I'll tell you.
Over 33. Okay.
So this play is the play that I like strongly disagree with.
I agree with you. I agree with your disagreement.
Yeah. Like, maybe blinking here, like... I still think that was wrong, but once you gave up initiative, it was time to not play anything. And I remember I made a post on Angermania's video on Reddit about this. I've already broken it down, kind of, but what ends up happening is that, like, had he not done this, he would have just won the game. I think, actually, that's, like, too hard a read to make, probably. But I think the more I think about it, blinking out of middle lane was super risky. So you've got a red hero and 2 blue heroes spawning next turn. Right. You're going to have 8 mana. He's got to be afraid of Time of Triumph. If I recall correctly, every card in the PAX decks was a 3-of except for items. So, like, super, like, good odds that he has it at that point. He hasn't seen Thunder Gods or Echo Slam yet, so like he should suspect that you have something big, right? And it doesn't really matter what it is. Like, Thunder Gods is definitely the worst, but something big is coming, right? So if you're Lumi, you're sitting there with the Blink Dagger in hand in mid lane, you're saying, okay, like, how do I win this game? You've already killed the middle lane tower. He's currently uncontested in the left lane. He knows that you're going to have to respond or possibly die because he can just play 4 heroes there, double Steam Cannon both random minions, and hit your tower for like 19, right? Even if he doesn't kill it. Am I going too fast? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then, so he knows that you have to respond, essentially, is what I'm saying. So holding the initiative is just super key. And if he does that, probably he wins, because if he has a response next turn, probably the turn after, because you won't have any heroes respawning, there's nothing you can do to stop him winning left lane. And if he didn't blink right here, there would still only be one one Red Mist Pillager next turn, because he would have just hit with the one here, right? Like, I definitely agree with your assessment. I think this was playing very strangely to deploy something in the right lane here. Yeah. I wanna pause again once we get to deployment to talk about where your heroes could go, because you have 3 and there's a lot to consider.
Okay.
Our guest, Dabacabb, you've got 3 heroes coming up. You got Earthshaker, Zeus, and Bristleback. And then Lumi has Riley the Cunning and Chen coming up. Only 1 creep spawns left lane, and already he's doing 13 damage. So the most that he can reduce, the most that you can reduce without any hero deployment by is like 9 if it blocks Riley, and he plays it there. So almost certainly, if he decides to commit to this left lane, you have to have some kind of response. So definitely, like, and this is what this is what he should have seen ahead of time. Even if both minions spawn here, you've got Chen passive and Steam Cannon. Sorry, that's Steam Cannon there. I don't actually think there's any way that he could have lost this game had he seen that just keeping initiative this turn would make sense. And he could have seen that as early, if he was paying attention, as turn 2 of this turn. Sorry, lane 2 of this turn. But yeah, so in terms of your deployment, right, knowing that this is a thing and not currently having an answer in your hand, let's talk about where you thought you should put them first.
Okay, so here's what I was thinking. I've got 3 heroes coming out. I don't care about right lane at all. That's just not a concern. So I need to win either first or second lane. I've got Time of Triumph, which could be a potential win condition, especially in third lane if I can pull it off. So at this point, it's simply a matter of, can I deploy 1 hero in the first lane and then the remaining heroes in the second lane? And with that first hero, stop him enough to cast it, like make it to the second lane and then cast Time of Triumph and potentially win? Or do I need to stack multiple heroes in the first lane, because I know that if I just play 1 blue hero and he gets killed, then I'm in trouble. So like, do I need to stack 2 or potentially more in the first lane? And I saw that I had initiative, and since I had initiative, I opted for just Earthshaker because Earthshaker's passive was going to be off cooldown, and so even if I didn't draw any answers, I could at least stun 2 creatures, two creatures minimum, best case 3 creatures, without him having an opportunity to like stop me. And if I hadn't had initiative, I certainly would have committed at least 2 heroes. I don't know which 2, maybe all 3. But I mean, we'll never know because that didn't happen. I had initiative. So I felt like I could probably fairly safely put in Earthshaker and hope his stun would be enough, and then try and win the second lane.
Got you. Okay. I think that's all pretty solid. The only thing that I would consider in addition is the extent to which it is risky to just play 1, even with initiative. Currently, like, you have Tower Barrage, and that's the only thing that does anything to his board in your hand with the blue hero. And there's a number of scenarios where Earthshaker's perk doesn't do very much. Like, let's think about what the scenarios are real quick. So if we imagine he's definitely going to play both of these 2 heroes in the left lane, he's going to have things spawning in any number, and I'm drawn on the screen just so you know, any number of 3 of these positions, right? So a very, very wide board. You get to block 1 with your creep and then 1 with the Earthshaker that's going down into this lane. If Earthshaker spawns next to like the side of a lane, so like I drew a lot of things. I'm just gonna make one example.
If it dropped in front of just 2 creep, it would have been lethal.
Yeah, so like if a creep spawned far right and then both heroes spawned far left, for example, right, then you wouldn't have been able to do anything. If Earthshaker spawned in front of both green heroes, so let's say that Chen and Rix were both left, and then Riley and the creep were both right, and then Earthshaker spawned here, that possibly could have been lethal also, because you're getting 9 plus 8, 17 damage just from your black heroes pushing through. And if he has coup de grace, or if he's Hand of God, and then Chen steals a creep, like there's ways, right, that he can push through no matter what. So the argument that I want to make with all of this thinking about where things could spawn is that no matter what, I would have spawned more than 1 hero in left lane, right? Because if you don't draw Echo Slam, you could be in really deep trouble.
But I believed in the heart of the cards, you see.
Well, that you always have to factor that in. That's fair. That's definitely fair. But let's imagine that we do that for a second, though. Okay, let's imagine we spawn all 3 heroes in the left lane. So we spawn Bristleback, Zeus, and Earthshaker. Let's just take... I'm going to make an arbitrary bunch of X's here about where things spawn. And it doesn't super matter what things are what. So you've blocked all but 2 of his things, right? He's going to kill or steal your creep, but it's not a big deal. if you were to like Time of Triumph there, you push through for 12 damage, putting left lane tower at 8 health. He probably, like, worst case, he pushes through for 17, I think, and you're still alive. And then next turn you have a chance to win. Probably better chance than him, to be honest with you. If you played one... Probably the best odds you would have is, like, the other players play 2 blue heroes here. That way you block 2 things, and Earthshaker gets his stun, and that probably reduces a good amount of damage too. Oh, I forgot that Earthshaker has stun in the 3-hero example too, so keep that in mind. Then you play Bristleback mid and you Time of Triumph, and now he's on a 2-turn clock there, right? Because you're dealing 8, plus he has no... he doesn't have a lot of things blocking you. Like, one thing's going to spawn here, one is here. So one of these pushes through, or these two. I hope this makes sense. I'm sorry that you can't see my drawings.
Sure.
So anyway, the point that I'm making is probably you can mitigate all of his damage in the left lane this turn, and then hope to draw like an Echo Slam next turn, force his hand at the very least, block some stuff, and then win mid lane with just 2 heroes. Or you could maybe just win left lane, even though he's got shit here. Like, it was a little greedy and risky to just play Earthshaker is the point that I'm making. And you could have played any other configuration and had, like, much better odds of winning the game. Plus, I guess you wouldn't have made the same play if you don't have initiative, so I'm not going to go in there. Anyway.
Right. I absolutely would not have done that. I would have assumed I would have gotten coup de grace and died.
Mm-hmm. Which is what should have happened, as we'll soon see. Let's go ahead and unpause. While we're just watching them deploy, did that all make sense?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it's true. One hero was certainly risky. It is possible that the RNG would have killed me if I'd done that, but I mean, I don't know if you noticed before with the previous plays, but I'm just willing to roll the dice sometime. And
hey, man,
the eclipses, that's just what you got to do. It's
I respect that, you know,
right? And I wanted to. I had the creep, blocking me as well. I had ventriloquy. I could have ventriloquied the creep, though. I guess he would have steam cannoned, wouldn't he? So that wouldn't have made any difference. But I was feeling okay. I was willing to roll the dice. Plus, there's always the chance I was keeping in mind that I could just draw an Echo Slam.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's exactly what happened. And just to be clear, when this was going on, when I saw the Echo Slam, my first impulse was to Echo Slam because it would have more or less wiped the board.
We should talk about that.
Before I could even do the math, the announcers were like,
yep.
Stun, 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 stun,
let's
stun,
pause.
stun, stun.
Let's pause. Okay, so I want to talk about that. Slacks did you dirty, man. There's no fucking way that you should stun here. No way. That's
right. Just looking back, I agree with you. I
Yeah.
I wanted to Echo Slam, but I didn't even get a chance to do the math on the Echo Slam because, you're up on the stage. I've never played a game in front of all those people live before, so it was a little bit, I don't say intimidating, but I definitely had a spotlight on me, and he was yelling in my ear, so I was like, fine, I guess he knows something I don't. I'll just go ahead and stun. And
you know what's funny? So the other game that I analyzed, he wasted his Earthshaker ability too. It doesn't do anything here, dude. It doesn't take him off of black mana or green mana because they're not neighbors. This isn't the newly revealed Tidehunter card. So it only stuns these two no matter what. So that doesn't do anything.
It does guarantee that to block 12 damage.
Well, Echo Slam guarantees the same amount of damage blocked.
Right.
It guarantees more damage blocked. There is no better play than just Echo Slamming here, right? Even if let's think about what the worst case scenario could possibly be. Let's imagine that his hand is Coup de Grace and Revtel Convoy. Okay, let's imagine he is that Revtel's 5? No, that's 11. Yeah, so let's imagine it's Coup de Grace plus Savage Wolf. Right, that's the most power he could put into play. Because what happens is, you Echo Slam, he Coup de Grace Earthshaker, and then he plays a Savage Wolf. Right?
And that's 4 damage plus it's 7 damage going through because the creep gets
steam cannon. He steam cannons creep.
Right.
So, like, not even close to killing you. In fact, that doesn't work. I lied again. Because isn't Chen gonna die?
No,
oh no, Chen's not gonna die. He's on 7. Okay, so still, let's go through that then. So Savage Wolf comes through. These 2 live. This dies. Got 8, 12 plus 3, 15 damage. And he's got an item, which cost 3 gold if you were paying attention. Which
I was not.
I haven't been either, but like, whenever someone has a 3 gold item and that's the only item in their hand, you know what it is. If you've been paying attention the whole game, that's just, how tracking it works. So yeah, he can't, like, there's no way he can kill you with an Echo Slam, but an Echo Slam guarantees you get to remove, if we imagine he has the same hand, for so it's 4 more damage. He could do 19 with that hand, with a Savage Wolf and a coup de grace. If you stun, he coup de grace and then Savage Wolves. And then, actually, then he steals. So yeah, he's still off, but it's actually worse if you stun, is the point that I'm making. I didn't go through originally and like actually work out how much it was, but it's worse. And it's pretty obvious it's worse. And so, yeah, you should have gone with your heart in this instance.
Right, yeah, that's super easy to do when you have one of the loudest casters on planet Earth shouting in your ear. But yeah, I do agree, going back, I should have Echo Slammed.
Yep, and then just in case people didn't read my post, I want to go over the one thing from Lumia's perspective I'm actually going to do this game, is that, like, I hope you can see now that if he had played to this out of drawing a coup and kept initiative from lane 2, when he had Lycan here, he would have been able to win the game by just immediately coup de grace this.
But in all fairness, I would have absolutely put more heroes here if I didn't have initiative.
That doesn't
have to be dumb to deploy one hero.
That probably doesn't save you though, because then he just Hands of Gods. So this entire board becomes immune, right? You get to stun a couple of them. You maybe, depending on if you played a red hero here or not, get to Time of Triumph. Like probably you Time of Triumph in the right lane.
Also got a ventriloquy though.
Vent probably doesn't do a lot in that scenario. So like if we imagine that scenario where you put, let's imagine that he kept initiative and you put all 3 here. So it's like the worst case scenario for him. So yeah, if you arbitrarily draw like Zeus and Bristleback in this lane, immediately when Lumi gets here and has initiative, the very first thing he'll do is Hand of God. And so everything on on his side will be immune. And then probably you would Time of Triumph, not ventriloquy, and then you would actually like possibly tie the next turn, because his guys, even with Time of Triumph, like get kind of low, and then maybe he like steam cannons one, maybe he draws another hand, maybe Truth to Powers. I think probably you still win in 2 turns with that line, but it depends on whether or not like this Echo Slam gets through or not. That's a little too speculative. It's hard to know for sure, honestly. But there's definitely lines where like maybe this game goes wrong for you. Most of them are pretty out of your control though. It's mostly about what you drew and what he draws. And I think playing to the outs, like the worst case scenario is you draw, actually, assuming you respect the initiative heading into this turn. Anyway, yeah, I think that's all I got. This was a well-played game, man.
Thank you. Though, despite the fact that you have been nice and informative, you make me feel real bad at this game.
I need to work on that if I'm doing that. I'm sorry. I don't think you should.
It has nothing to do with like how you're delivering it. It's just like, wow, you know so much more about this game than I do, as it should be, of course. But clearly I've got a lot to learn. I was, in general, pretty there, and while I did make a couple of mistakes, I thought in general I played pretty decently. I don't know if I would have won without the handicap. That's kind of questionable. But in general, I thought I did a pretty decent job. Clearly, I've got some more things to learn, and I think there's hope for me at least.
Definitely, I think by the way, for what it's worth, this game was close enough that I don't think you would have won without the handicap, but I don't think that's a big deal. Like, specifically what would have happened, and you can actually break this down for yourself a little bit if you want to imagine it. Basically, it would have meant that you didn't get to push through to the Ancient in the right lane without committing more there. And as you've seen in both of the instances that we've talked about, where you deploy heroes in left lane or middle lane in this turn, you required the volume of heroes that you had to be high in order to actually tie next turn or win this turn.
Actually, I don't know about that. I think in the current scenario, I probably got like lethal on right lane. I think because Keith is unblocked and he's got 6 damage. There's a pretty good chance I would have just on this turn actually killed right lane with the handicap or without the handicap.
Oh, you mean right lane tower?
Yeah, right lane tower. I would have taken out the tower. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think probably not, but I could be wrong too. We're beginning to venture into pretty deep speculative waters. But yeah, I think you played really well, and I think of a lot of the analysis I've seen, what you've been doing so far is pretty solid.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you to the guys who've been watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. Next time around, I'll do another dual perspective one with no guest, but I hope you enjoyed Dabacabb's presence on the show. Do you want to do some shout outs for your YouTube and all that jazz?
Yeah, just go to YouTube, type in Dabacabb Artifact. You'll find me in there. I do all kinds of content. Hopefully you will, I don't know, find something you like.
Yeah, and that's Cab with 2 B's, which I've written super poorly on the screen with my pen tool.
It's fine.
So, I got you. They're going to be able to spell it. It's going to be awesome. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Thank you, Dabacabb, for joining me. Catch you guys next time.
See ya.